Welcome to Mastermind Minutes, the leading podcast for franchisors, franchisees, and entrepreneurs of all types. We have one guest, we ask one question, and we get one expert answer, and we do it in minutes, not hours. Hello again, and welcome to another edition of Mastermind Minutes. My name's Gary Occhiogrosso. I'm the founder and also the managing partner for Franchise Growth Solutions, as well as the publisher of the National Franchise Newsletter. For those of you, as we always say, who are new to the podcast, even though we're in our 7th season, the concept is very simple. We have one guest, we have one topic or one question. I hedged that a little bit because somebody called me out on the fact that it isn't always one question. But we always do get an expert answer from an expert on the particular topic or question that we ask. And today, my guest is Alexandra Spitz, and she is the founder and CEO of New Mom School. You're going to love this concept, absolutely going to love this concept. And it's the only franchise concept of its kind dedicated to postpartum education, support, and community for new mothers. For those of you who follow me, you know my daughter has a 26-month-old and 2 one-year-old twins. Today's their birthday. So today's their birthday. She has their hands full, for sure. She is, and I've spoken with her before, she is a visionary entrepreneur and a community builder. She transformed a local motherhood support program into a rapidly growing national brand, serving thousands of new mothers across multiple states. Named to the Inc. Female Founders 500, not an easy thing to do. Alex is passionate about scaling purpose-driven businesses, empowering women through motherhood, and proving that meaningful community can be built at scale. Alex, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to dive into this. But before we do that, tell us a little bit more about yourself, because I think your journey and your story is fantastic. And then a little bit more about New Mom School, kind of how you started it, the inspiration, and really what it's about. And then we'll get into the question.
Great. I am a mother of 2 boys. They are 12 and 15. And when I was pregnant with my first son, I was very much feeling like I was put on earth to be a mom. I had taken care of my niece and nephew since they were newborns. I was a babysitter since I was a teenager. I thought I had it under control. I wasn't gonna struggle like both of my sister-in-laws had. I was Judgy McJudgerson, and I thought to myself, this is going to be easy. It's going to be a breeze. And for all the parents out there, as you know, the reality is vastly different than the expectation. And I found myself in this hole of my life had been turned upside down overnight. I had an unplanned C-section. I was exhausted. I had people around, yet I felt so lonely. And I couldn't understand why it was so hard. When I joined a support group for new moms, it was casual. It was kind of just talking about the transition, and it became a lot of a complain fest around what our husbands weren't doing to help and that we were so lonely. And that was helpful, except that the group of us had questions, and our questions would go unanswered in our facilitated group. And I'm an information junkie. When I don't know an answer to something, I will go find it. So I started researching. And at the time, I'm aging myself here, at the time in 2011, when you went on Google, you got real medical journals, research articles, research studies, and I found myself getting really angry that there is decades and decades worth of research around new motherhood and how the baby's brain develops and how community is an absolute necessity, yet we had none. So we are hardwired to be in community. We're hardwired. We are tribal humans. Yet that village and that built-in community is no longer here. So we have this huge care gap in the US. And as I continue to go down that route and that rabbit hole, I just felt like this information needs to be deployed to all parents. This was something that past generations were getting from their older generational family members, their aunts, their uncles, their grandmothers, their moms, their sisters that had had babies before them. And all of a sudden, we had nothing.
Yeah.
And so what happened was I felt like that group was so incredibly life-changing and supportive, and it needed to be evolved and elevated to include all of this research that I was discovering. So I set out in this, we had moved about an hour and a half south from where we were. I had my first baby up in Los Angeles. I'm in Orange County, California. We moved to Orange County for my husband's work. And I had left my position as a operations director that I had been at for 12 years. Came down to Orange County with no plan. I joined every mom group that I could, and I continued to feel disappointed. I had questions now. My son was a toddler. I still wasn't getting this good, yummy information that new families need. And I went down the rabbit hole again of toddler education, moms, and I had learned all this stuff from when my son was a newborn. And let me back up a little, because the women in my group started coming to me to answer questions because they knew I was doing the research. And I just remember sitting in that group one day thinking, this is brilliant, right? Like, it's a no-brainer that we need community, but it needs to be evolved. And I can do this better. I can take what I've learned with the research and create a program that really satisfies that need. I mean, it is like in your bones a need for this information for confidence. And so we came down here and I said, all right, this is it. This is my next step, my next step. Never in a million years did I think or plan or desire for it to be how it is now. I just really focused on our local community. There was nothing like it where we were, which is also surprising. And I created a curriculum and a structure that brought in experts from within the community. Because as you know, your pediatrician can't know everything about everything. And it really does take a village to really take care of the mom and really take care of the baby. And that's how it all began. And it grew like wildfire because it's so needed. We have to close that gap. And so here we are.
Yeah, well, obviously, the need for it exists because you launched it as a national brand, and that obviously means, hey, uh, there's a market out there. But before we go there and delve into it, I couldn't agree with you more about the concept of the village, and I guess in a different way. Uh, when I was growing up in the late 60s, 1970s, back when dinosaurs ruled the world, um, I grew up in New York, and at that time people weren't as mobile as they are now. I think I mentioned, like, I live here on the East Coast. My daughter lives out in Colorado. And like that was unheard of. So when I grew up, like my grandmother lived in the apartment building across the street, and my aunt lived up the block, and another aunt and uncle lived over there. So there was always this thing that, hey, if mom and dad had to do something, we were staying with Aunt Josie, or grandma was coming over there was just this whole thing
Mhm.
going on. And when my wife and I were raising our daughter, there was significantly less of that because we had moved into the suburbs, so we didn't have that access. And now it seems that people are so spread out from family and really meaningful connections or informational connections. Okay, I don't want to say meaningful. People do have meaningful connections, but the connections that what your mother could teach you is now, from my wife and my daughter, it's 1,800 miles away.
Yes.
And so it's a thing. So I hear you, and I applaud you for recognizing that, and maybe living through it. Kind of, you got the bloody nose, as I say, to kind of say, hey, don't do this. We need to do that.
I
But
did.
I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, just sort of as a preamble to the question, are First of all, how many operating units do you have? This is not the actual question, but how many operating units do you
We
have?
have 25 operating units.
Okay, and how many more in the queue? Do you have
We
more in
have
the?
15 more in the queue,
Okay, great.
and we're
That
in 18 states at the moment.
fantastic. I love it. Are your franchisees primarily women?
They are 100% women.
100% women. Okay, I'm not surprised by that answer, but it kind of leads me to the question because we see more, and you know what my company does. I mean, we're a franchise sales organization, a franchise development and advisory. And when I look around all of the brands that we serve, and we have, I don't know, maybe 40 brands, but probably 20 of them are active. Okay. Of the brands that we work with that we award franchises, I'm just kind of going through my head. And I would tell you in the last year, probably 40, maybe 50% of those franchises were awarded to women.
Mm.
And so I guess my question is, why do you believe so
Mhm.
many women, including yourself,
Mhm.
are going into the franchise business? Like, what, they're women entrepreneurs are a fast-growing segment. Why do you think that is?
So I love this question. What we've seen, and I have spoken to thousands of women over the years, we know that corporate life for women is exhausting, it's draining. They're juggling this overwhelming, these overwhelming demands on them. So they're meant to be productive as an employee. They're the primary caretaker at home. They're the person that's managing everybody's emotions. They're meant to be sort of thinking ahead to what their children and family need. And the corporate life they're being set up for failure. And a human can't operate for long periods of times feeling like a failure. There has to be a shift. And what we're seeing is women being empowered to step out of that it's not the only way, that there is ability to be flexible in business ownership. That was one of the most fulfilling avenues for me, is that I could do meaningful work that was purpose driven. I could help people and I could help provide for my family. And the pieces sort of all come together. It's not just the owners that are now stepping into this meaningful and purpose driven work, it's also their instructors, it's also the visiting experts. So we're creating this web of opportunity for women across the country to step into meaningful work that's actually making a difference and is impacting how our new motherhood landscape is. Because what's happening is we're seeing this mental health crisis, and you can trace it back to how much support the woman had in their newborn phase. Those first few months of life for a baby, we know developmentally set the stage for the rest of their lives. They're better students. They're most likely to go to college. They're less likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. They have stronger relationships and friendships. However, when the mom is left to navigate this by herself, she's not able to actually be the version of herself that her baby needs to grow up into this healthy individual that we're all searching for. So there's this really mismatch of like these expectations around women to be everything, but they can't actually succeed at anything. Not to mention, they are partners, their wives, their family members, their friends, their daughters. And it just, how are they meant to ever succeed when they have so many things on their plate?
Yeah, it is so insightful what you said because it's sort of that first, that early imprinting on the baby, like what that vibe is, for the lack of a
Mhm.
better word. I remember, and I'm not comparing a child to my dog, okay? However, I do want to tell you this story. So I never had a dog growing up. My mother told us we were allergic to dogs, but we
Oh,
weren't.
that's
She just
sad.
didn't want to have a dog, right? So when I got my first dog, it was a German Shepherd, and I totally messed up this dog. This dog was a fear biter. This dog would
Mm.
like go through glass windows to get to the mailman. And when my wife and I moved to the burbs, I said, okay, I have to get like a dog trainer now. And one of the first things the trainer said to me, said, your dog is neurotic and fearful and a mess because you're neurotic and fearful and a mess in front of your dog. Because I grew up being afraid of dogs, I have now have a German Shepherd, so I assumed everybody. So I imprinted all of my stuff on my
Yes.
dog. So it, and again, I'm not comparing the two, but it does make sense that if mom is confused, stressed out, depressed, overworked, whatever, that
Hmm.
all of that energy is going on little baby.
Yes.
So your opportunity, your franchise, New Mom School, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but as I see it from a mission point of view, is to remove that sort of stuff from mommy and put other stuff around mommy so that everybody benefits. Do I kind of have that right?
You nailed it. When that
Okay.
community support is in place, mom can focus on things like breastfeeding. We're seeing the lowest rates of breastfeeding because mom doesn't have support in other areas. She's still cooking and doing laundry and cleaning her toilets. And I say, no new mother should be cleaning their bathroom.
Yeah.
And if they're cleaning their bathroom, someone else needs to clean that bathroom. That is a non negotiable.
Yeah. I hear you. As I mentioned at the top of the program, my daughter has a 26-month-old and today two 1 year olds. Today,
Happy
I just
birthday.
came back from visiting them. And when I saw her, I guess a couple of times in the last year, and she breastfed, and she was literally, and I don't know how she does it, she was literally walking around with breast pumps, cooking. The thing sounded like a vacuum cleaner. She's got babies everywhere. And even
Yes.
when we left, we just came back. Even when we left, I thought to myself, how does she deal with this? Now, she does have a pretty good support group there, which is very
That's how she
helpful.
does it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's how she does it.
If she didn't, she wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah, and she goes the extra mile. She'll bake bread and she'll do, and I'm like, why? Just go to the store and buy bread. Like, why are you baking bread? No, no, no. I want the kids to have like, okay, I get it, I get it, I get it.
Yeah.
So getting back to this question of female entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, and just really the operation in general sort of let me just sort of ask what might appear to be a contrarian question like do you think a man could be a franchisee and do a good job or is it something that you just can't relate.
I do think a man could. And we do have some partners of our franchisees that are maybe involved in the back end business side of things. Depending on what our franchisees' strengths are, we have them look for support that where there's complementary skills to the owner, meaning that there could be a male owner, and we know as dads, we know that dads actually get almost they get less support than a woman, and they need to understand what they're going through. There's an incredible amount of anxiety that new fathers feel, except that in this country we're not helping men be able to express that anxiety. It shows weakness, right? The belief is that it's weakness, that they have to be strong. But what happens then is that men, fathers will retreat from home life because they're not feeling confident. So they're going to go to work more. They're going to withdraw from their spouses. Their relationships are very much going to suffer. And we see that as well. The divorce rate is monumental and shouldn't be. And it all is based on a lack of support and education and community. So males can absolutely own the business part of it. They're not going to be teaching the classes. They're not going to be able to relate to the mothers when it comes to sitting in that circle. We call it our golden circle. We
Mhm.
all sit around a rug that's a golden color. Everything happens within that circle. So diapers are changed. Learning how to feed in public is one of the main things our moms love to do because everything's provoking. I haven't met one mom in 13 years who hasn't experienced anxiety, worry, and fear when after her baby is born. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And that same 100% of women also have trouble with feeding, whether it's breastfeeding, bottle feeding, formula feeding, combo feeding, whatever the case may be. But we're not seeing this global, reinforcement, scaffolding around the nuclear family. So we're seeing very high rates of divorce, not breastfeeding, levels of postpartum depression. There's this statistic that says 1 in 5 women experiences postpartum depression. False. That's just the people that are reporting it, filling out a questionnaire, being identified. 100% of women are feeling anxious, and some women don't even know what anxiety means. So we'll be sitting there in classes talking about it, and they'll say, "Oh, no, I don't have anxiety." And then we'll dig in further around what are you fearful of? There's, 3 main common things that new moms are fearful of. So we address those and we talk about that, and they say, "Oh, I had no idea that is anxiety. I do have to look at that because that energy is getting transferred to my baby." So all that to say, absolutely, men could own a business. We vet our prospects, obviously, but I don't know if it would be like the single guy owning the businesses. I
Well,
think
yeah.
that would sort of raise our eyebrows a little bit. But absolutely, men can be involved in this,
Yeah.
and I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. So I did Mr. Mom for about 6 or 8 months. So my wife and I were both career people. I was in the radio business. She was well, for her whole career was in the New York publishing business. And after my daughter was born, after I guess about 4 or 5 months, she went back to work. I was able to work from home most of the times. Of course, I felt guilty that she was the one schlepping down to the city and I was home with the baby. I had absolutely no connections at all. So, daddy daughter, it may have been simpler if it was daddy's son, but daddy daughter got a little complicated, especially when I'll tell you a very quick story. We were out at a baseball game in New York, and I guess she was maybe 5 at that point. I don't really recall. When she was younger, if she had to use the restroom and we were out, like at the zoo or something, I would tell her, "Baby doll, close your eyes." I would take her in the men's room, hold her over the toilet. I wouldn't let her touch anything, hold her over
No.
the toilet. But then when she got older, she didn't want to do that. And I would literally have to wait in front of the ladies' room like a
Yes.
creep with my daughter until I saw a woman that had like another kid that I would say, "Can you take my daughter into the bathroom?" So those things those are more logistics that I think guys deal with as opposed to the things you're talking about as
Right.
women have to deal with in raising a child. So, um, when you opened the first unit, and I want to talk about the franchise for a couple of minutes here. When you opened the first unit, did you have people waiting like, hey, they want to, or did you sort of like start this in your living room and then move to a bricks and mortar? Like, what was that evolution? Because I don't know that I ever saw an ad for sort of a mommy group, so to speak, unless it was like something in a church or at a local library or something. So what did that look like?
Yes. So historically, the groups do take place at a religious organization in a park in someone's living room. I had the vision to elevate that. I started in a therapy practice office. I rented an office. We all sat around the floor. It was tiny. I put a sheet down. It was it was part of the building blocks, right? It was the first space, and the owner of the practice was very supportive. She loved what I was doing. She rented it to me for like $15 an hour as I was getting started. That then, as my the classes grew like wildfire, and I quickly needed more space, more time. So I ended up leasing a dance studio during the hours that they didn't hold any classes. So that was between about 11 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Yeah.
And really, a newborn mother really can't get out of the house before about 10 a.m. It's pretty tough. So we held our classes between those hours, and I was there for 7 years. And then after 7 years, I decided to move to another location that was on the ground floor. I had two classrooms, and it really just expanded. What happened during COVID was we retracted again. So we retracted back to a one classroom setting. We were able to host all of our classes. We had sort of dabbled in this idea of sort of continuing with toddlers. I should add that our classes go up to 12 months postpartum, really that first year of life. After COVID, we really couldn't host those toddlers. The germs, they're all mouthing the toys, and we retracted again into a one classroom setting. So the business model, much to my surprise, was extremely simple. There's not a lot of furniture. We're sitting on the floor. It's a very minimal environment. Overhead is low, but demand is high. So it turned out, even though I don't, I always say, like, I don't see dollar signs. The stars in my eyes are new moms. I have this affinity for new moms. It's my happy place. I love to be with new moms. The research that I've done has just completely opened my eyes to what they need and what they're not getting. And so I just really focused on what we were doing. I mean, I had tunnel vision around how do we help as many moms as possible. That's what ended up leading me to deciding to franchise it. I wanted to get to as many moms as possible, as fast as possible. I
Right.
mean, it like, we are in a bad place in our country.
Yeah. Well,
We are
when
in a
the
mental health crisis.
when the mission is service, the money comes. When the mission is money, it
Right.
never really seems to work. So, and I want to ask you a couple more questions about the franchise piece. But do you have moms who come back, like maybe they already have a child and now they've had another child? Do they come back for, I don't want to say like a refresher course, but maybe to see what's new and exciting, or maybe this baby is different from the first baby and they've got other issues in their life? Like, do you have
Well,
repeat
that
customers,
is
so to speak?
true. No two children are alike.
Right? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a dumb statement on my part.
Well, the answer is yes. We have a second time mom curriculum as well. And
Ah,
that really
okay.
works on how the relationship changes even further, how you manage a toddler with a newborn, how do you get them both on that same nap schedule so that mom can have a break? How do you manage the toddler's emotions around having a new sibling and they start to act up? So yes, we touch on what is happening within the family system once a second baby is
Yeah.
born.
Yeah, I could see that happening. My daughter's toddler is mommy's helper, actually.
Yes.
And enamored with the twins,
Yes.
but thankfully she's mommy's helper because you could see there's a dynamic there.
Yes.
And I will also say, and I'm sure you've seen this because I'm sure you have mommies that have twins, and I'm sure
Yes.
that's a whole nother layer of curriculum perhaps, but I can tell you, observing my two granddaughters, there is some ESP, there's something going on. They're
Yes.
little, they're only one, but they kind of have something going on. So
Yes.
you've seen that, and I'm sure that's something that, you know, plays into the dynamic of this.
Absolutely. Twins are a different ball game. That's all hands on deck at the same time. There are some benefits to that, and there's some challenges to that. Our twin moms are welcome in our newborn series or our second time mom series, any series really. And some moms have chosen to bring one baby each week. Some moms have chosen to bring both. Our instructors and visiting experts are always in so helpful. They'll take one of the babies, or if one baby is crying, they'll help with the other baby. So it's really a team effort. I mean, it's like this, it takes a village is so cliche, but it's just true. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just true. And I have to say, I want to go back to something you said about men and women. We tend to put this pressure on our citizens around how men and women are equal, and they are equal in terms of how they should be paid or jobs that they can do. But physiologically, we're not the same. We are completely different. So if we could just really see each other's strengths and where we need scaffolding, we become powerful together versus one against the other because we're not the same.
Yeah.
It's like it's comparing apples to oranges.
Yep.
Literally, we are not the same.
Yeah, and it bleeds into, boy, we could go in 40 directions here, but it
Yeah.
bleeds into the sort of the mommy daddy relationship in the sense that I think I'm representative of most men in that situation where my position was I was helping. Like I was just helping. I
Right.
wasn't the person doing it. I was just helping the person doing it,
Hmm.
which sort of takes some of the responsibility and the burden off, but also sets up this scenario that I'm not involved on an equal basis. I'm just helping.
Hmm.
So, do you encounter that? I mean, do you see that sort of dynamic in the business?
Very much so. I see men or dads being called babysitters or moms asking for permission to do simple hygiene things like take a shower by themselves or go to the bathroom by themselves. There's this weird thing that happens with new moms where they feel like they have to ask permission for just basic self-hygiene
Yeah,
when we don't see that with the dads. We see them saying, I'm going to work out tonight after the office. I'm going to play golf this weekend.
right,
There's no asking for permission.
right.
It's
Yeah,
just they're very direct with their needs. And what we teach in classes is also being direct with their needs, that it's not being ungrateful. It's needing to take care of our
yeah.
needs in order to be the best versions of ourselves for our babies.
Yeah, and I again, I'm going back way back because I'm 68 right now. But my wife and I we only have one child, so we had our daughter when we were 32, which today is like not a big deal, okay? But back in 1985, 80s, whatever, that was like, oh my God, if you didn't have four kids by the time you were 28, you was something was wrong, right? But we had observed a lot of our friends who had children when they were 22 and 23. And we saw sort of this, I don't want to say crumbling of the relationship. I'm not a marriage counselor, but we did see a lot of the resentment is probably the best word, not towards their children, but almost just towards life in general because
Each other.
they couldn't hang out.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to know, like, do you see those different, um, I guess I'm going to say psychological effects? I know you're not a psychologist, but do you see those different impacts
Mhm.
on parents who are younger versus parents who are older? And parents, by the way, now, like so many of my friends' children, they don't have their first kid until they're 35,
Mhm.
33. And I think you mature a lot and but do you see a different dynamic there in terms of needs, say a 23-year-old mom versus a 33-year-old first-time mom?
So interestingly, the older the mom and dad, the more set in their ways they are. So the harder it
Oh,
is for them to be flexible and adapt.
oh, okay.
And so, you know, an absolutely mind-blowing statistic is that 70% of new parents are dissatisfied with their relationship after baby. 70%.
Really? Wow.
Yes. I mean, that's because, once again, we're treating dad and mom the same. We're saying dad and mom should be sharing duties in the house, doing equal amounts, yet that's not, women are wired to be nurturers,
Right. Yeah.
caretakers. Men
Yeah.
are wired to be logistical,
Right.
solution
We're
focused, right? Tell me what to do.
protect and provide, protect and provide.
Protect, I
That's
mean, this is how we are hardwired from the beginning of time, right? the men were hunters and gatherers. The women stayed home
Mhm.
and raised their, children and nurtured their families and cared for their families.
And if I
Our
can interrupt, both of those roles are equally important.
Exactly.
Okay.
And without the other, there would be no other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No.
without each other, there's no, like, it takes a system. It's like a business. You can't do everything by yourself. You need others to make that system run.
Yeah.
And there's no different in family. You need the system in place with the multiple um, uh, players to make the system run professionally,
Yeah, no, it
productively.
makes sense. So I see my daughter has, quote, a system and a routine. Obviously, she's got three, in diapers. However, and I think this is her artist side because she's an
Mhm.
artist. She I don't know if she builds it in, but she quickly assesses what needs to be put in order and
Yes.
what can kind of just go with the flow at the moment so she doesn't like flip out, okay? So,
Yes.
and I see that, and it's almost like she's able to kind of maneuver through the day that way. Whereas
Mhm.
if she just had this one rigid thing going on, life isn't that way. Um, let me just ask you, just as a final thought, but you can expand upon it. Like, well, so what's the goal here with the franchise? You know, uh, you said you're in 18 states. You don't need to rattle them all off, but I'm just curious, like, what's the goal here? 100, 500? Where do you think you could take this concept?
You know, of course there's like it could go in a number of different ways, but my ultimate goal is I really want to make change in the standard of care for how women are taken care of once their babies are born. We know that there's this huge care gap, and we very much are partners to the OBGYNs, the midwives, the pediatricians. Neither of those are able to they don't have the resources to support the woman after birth, and they also don't have their model of care is one to one. Our model is many to one. So we are a group of 14 women in a room, and there's a method to the madness. But I eventually want to make change. I want to reduce the rates of postpartum depression and anxiety. I want to reduce the rates of divorce in the first 3 years after you have a baby. It, it's, you know, separate to this, I'm very well versed in the neurodiversity in amongst children and that world. That's an 80% divorce rate
Yeah.
amongst special needs families. The divorce rate amongst new families, I think the US average at one point was like 50%. I think it's
Mhm.
growing.
Yeah.
It's not going down. I really want to make policy change. I want insurance companies to cover postpartum care like ours. We are in the healthcare world. We're in the mental health care world. This isn't your, little local mommy and me that you go to
Right.
play
Yeah.
with toys.
It's not
This is
Tumblebee.
it's structured, it's organized, it's high quality. There's no just letting it fly and having a bunch of women complain to each other. We keep it on track, we keep it research backed. We have real professionals that are working with these moms. We have a very in depth training program. Our instructors don't need to come from a child development background. We are able to empower them with the knowledge, information around what new moms need. I've been doing this a long time, so our program has shifted over the years based on it's all very timed. So it's what the mom can receive at the different points in her journey. We're not going to be able to talk about uh, infant brain development. She's not going to be that mom is not going to be able to focus on that until she learns how to actually soothe her baby that's fussy and crying. So that's the first step. Let's get you to be able to be confident in actually soothing yourself and your baby.
Yeah.
Then we can talk about sleep foundation, sleep science. newborns aren't meant to sleep 12 hours at night. They're feeding 24 hours around the clock. We have to get rid of these assumptions that, and the whole sleep training, there's a big controversy around it now, and certain countries are banning it, thank God. It's not developmentally appropriate for the baby. What's happening is that moms are not okay because they don't have the support. So they're exhausted and breaking down and melting down. We're seeing astronomical levels of postpartum psychosis and insomnia and OCD. These are all things that can be supported through this network that we have: professional therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists. These are all things that the new mom needs and isn't getting.
Yeah.
So my goal, I mean, do I want 300 locations? Sure. But it's not because I want 300 locations because of a business. I want 300 locations because of the impact and the movement that we're a part of right now.
Yeah. I'm very rarely at a loss for words. Trust me, or ask anyone that knows me. But I have to say, your mission is incredible. It's big. It's big. And
Go big or go home.
well, that's it. I really, really, I agree. I mean, if your mission does, I forget how the saying goes, but if your mission doesn't scare you, your mission isn't big enough. Okay,
Mhm.
that kind of a thing. So, if someone wants to get in touch with you or learn more about New Mom School, maybe even become a franchisee, how do they get in touch? What do they do?
We are New Mom School everywhere. So we're newmomschool.com online. We're New Mom School on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. I post a lot of my thought leadership on LinkedIn. I really want to spread this knowledge and opportunity. I mean, there is a solution to the problem that we're facing. So
Yeah.
why not embrace it and put that solution in many different places?
Great. So newmom.com, they get in touch. Oh,
Newmomschool.com.
newmomschool.com. Okay, I'm
Yes,
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
So it makes sense. And of course, for those of you who are familiar with the program, when we post this on LinkedIn and YouTube and Spotify and blah blah blah, we will embed that link. Alex, thank you so much for being here with us today. I literally could talk about this sort of stuff forever because I think it cuts to the core of, human nature and how we as a society grow. And being an entrepreneur myself and an entrepreneurial advisor, all of these things, everything touches everything else. Nothing is in a vacuum. And I think what you're doing, like, is at the very beginning of that process. You're affecting the very beginning. So thank you so much for being here with us today. Truly, truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for what you do. Maybe a part two in the future.
Perhaps.